Hello and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we're going to dive into a topic that has been studied and revered by many individuals in the world of business and leadership, the 48 Laws of Power. This book, written by Robert Greene, is a masterpiece in the realm of human nature and the ways in which power operates in our society. The 48 Laws of Power is a guidebook that provides insights and strategies for gaining and maintaining power, while also illuminating the often dark tactics used by those who hold it. Through the pages of this book, Robert Greene teaches us how to navigate through complex social situations and gain an edge in various power dynamics, ranging from the office to personal relationships. It's a powerful tool for those looking to improve their leadership skills, increase their influence, or simply gain a better understanding of the social dynamics around them. But what makes this book so special is not just its insights into power dynamics, but also the historical anecdotes and stories used to illustrate each of the 48 laws. From Napoleon Bonaparte to Catherine the Great, Greene takes us on a journey through time and reveals the ways in which some of the most influential figures in history used power to their advantage. So, whether you're an aspiring entrepreneur, a corporate executive, or simply someone looking to gain more control over their own life, the 48 Laws of Power has something to offer. Join me as we explore the concepts of this book and learn how to apply them in the real world. Let's dive in. Law 1, Never Outshine the Master. Chapter 1 of the 48 Laws of Power, Never Outshine the Master, is a fascinating exploration of the delicate balance of power in our relationships. The law states that in any given situation, you should never show up your superiors or outshine them, as this can lead to resentment and ultimately, your downfall. One of the most famous examples of this principle in action comes from the story of Cassius and Brutus, two prominent Roman politicians. Cassius, the more ambitious of the two, was constantly trying to outshine Brutus and take the lead in their partnership. However, in doing so, he ended up making Brutus feel insecure and ultimately caused a rift in their relationship, leading to the downfall of both men. So how can we apply this law to our own lives? One key takeaway is to always be aware of the power dynamics in our relationships, both personal and professional. If you find yourself in a situation where you have a superior, whether it's a boss or a mentor, it's important to show respect and deference to them, while also working to improve your own skills and abilities. At the same time, it's important to strike a balance between showing respect and asserting yourself when necessary. By finding this delicate balance, you can gain the respect and admiration of your superiors while also advancing your own goals and ambitions. So, as we delve deeper into the 48 Laws of Power, remember the importance of never outshining the master. Law 2, Never put too much trust in friends, learn how to use enemies. This law reminds us that not everyone in our lives has our best interests at heart, even those we consider to be friends. We must remain vigilant and aware of potential threats and not become complacent. One example of this principle in action comes from the business world. A successful entrepreneur may have built up a network of contacts and friends who are also in the industry. However, they should not become too reliant on these relationships and should always be on the lookout for potential competitors or those who may be trying to undermine them. But it's not just about being defensive. Learning how to use enemies can also be a powerful tool in advancing our own goals and ambitions. For example, in politics, a politician may have a bitter rival who is always trying to undermine them. By studying their rivals' weaknesses and motivations, they can use this information to their advantage and gain the upper hand in debates and negotiations. So how can we apply this law to our own lives? Firstly, we need to be aware that not everyone is trustworthy, and we must always be vigilant in our relationships. Secondly, we should not be afraid to use our enemies to our advantage, but we must be careful not to create unnecessary enemies or burn bridges that may come back to haunt us. In summary, Law 2 of the 48 Laws of Power teaches us to never put too much trust in friends and to learn how to use enemies to our advantage. Law 3, Conceal your intentions. This law has been used by military strategists and leaders throughout history, and it's just as relevant in our personal and professional lives today. One example of this principle in action comes from the military tactics of Sun Tzu, the ancient Chinese general and author of The Art of War. Sun Tzu famously advised his soldiers to feign confusion when you are strong, and feign weakness when you are weak. By concealing their intentions and misleading their enemies, Sun Tzu's soldiers were able to gain the upper hand in battles and emerge victorious. Another example comes from the legendary Mongol conqueror, Genghis Khan. Genghis Khan would often send scouts and spies ahead of his armies to gather intelligence and assess the strength of his enemies. By concealing his true intentions and surprising his enemies with sudden attacks, Genghis Khan was able to build a vast empire that stretched across Asia and Europe. So how can we apply this law to our own lives? Firstly, we need to be mindful of the power of deception and misdirection. By concealing our intentions, we can gain the upper hand in negotiations and achieve our goals with greater ease. Secondly, we need to be aware of the importance of gathering intelligence and assessing the strengths and weaknesses of our opponents. By doing so, we can identify opportunities for success and avoid potential pitfalls. In summary, Law 3 of the 48 Laws of Power teaches us to conceal our intentions and use the power of deception to our advantage. By studying the tactics of military strategists and leaders throughout history, we can gain valuable insights into how to navigate complex power dynamics in our personal and professional lives. Law 4, always say less than necessary. This law is a powerful tool for anyone seeking to gain the upper hand in negotiations, whether in business or in personal relationships. One historical example of this principle in action comes from the negotiations between Thomas Jefferson and John Adams, two of the most important figures in American history. During the tense negotiations leading up to the signing of the Declaration of Independence, Adams advised Jefferson to never use two words when one will do. By saying less than necessary and carefully choosing their words, Jefferson and Adams were able to negotiate effectively and achieve their goals. Another example comes from the world of business, where negotiation is a critical skill. Successful negotiators know that the key to getting what you want is often to say less and listen more. By carefully observing the other party's body language, tone of voice, and choice of words, you can gain valuable insights into their true intentions and motivations. So how can we apply this law to our own lives? Firstly, we need to be aware of the power of silence and the importance of choosing our words carefully. By saying less than necessary, we can avoid giving away too much information and maintain an air of mystery and power. Secondly, we need to be good listeners, paying close attention to the other person's words and body language. By doing so, we can gain valuable insights and negotiate more effectively. In summary, Law 4 of the 48 Laws of Power teaches us to always say less than necessary and to listen more than we speak. Remember to be mindful of your own speech and to pay close attention to the words of others, and you'll be well on your way to mastering the art of power. Law 5, so much depends on reputation, guard it with your life. This law highlights the critical importance of reputation in the world of power and how it can make or break your success. One historical example of the importance of reputation comes from the world of politics. Richard Nixon, the 37th President of the United States, famously lost his reputation and ultimately his presidency due to the Watergate scandal. The scandal damaged his reputation beyond repair, and he resigned from office in disgrace. Another example comes from the world of business. Martha Stewart, a successful businesswoman and TV personality, suffered a severe blow to her reputation when she was found guilty of insider trading. The scandal led to her imprisonment and a significant loss of trust from her customers and fans. These examples demonstrate the immense impact reputation can have on our lives, whether in politics or in business. The key takeaway from Law 5 is to guard your reputation with your life. This means being mindful of the way you present yourself to the world and being careful to avoid behaviors or actions that could damage your reputation. We should strive to maintain a positive reputation by acting with integrity and honesty in all of our dealings. Secondly, we should be careful not to engage in behaviors or actions that could damage our reputation. This could mean being careful about what we say or do in public, or even being careful about who we associate with. In summary, Law 5 of the 48 Laws of Power teaches us to guard our reputation with our life. Law 6, create an air of mystery. This law emphasizes the importance of projecting an aura of mystery and unpredictability to keep others guessing about your intentions and motivations. One historical figure who embodied this law was Napoleon Bonaparte. Napoleon was known for his unpredictability and his ability to keep his enemies guessing about his next move. His mysterious persona added to his power and enabled him to maintain a sense of control over his enemies. Another example comes from the world of fiction, with the character of Thomas Shelby in the TV series Peaky Blinders. Thomas Shelby is a master at creating an air of mystery around himself, using his calm demeanor, impeccable style, and enigmatic personality to keep others guessing about his true intentions. So how can we apply Law 6 to our own lives? One way is to maintain a sense of mystery and unpredictability in our actions and behavior. This could mean being selective about what we reveal to others, and keeping some things to ourselves. It could also mean varying our behavior in different situations, so that others are never quite sure what to expect from us. However, it's important to note that this law should be used with caution. Creating an air of mystery can be useful in certain situations, but it's important to remain authentic and true to ourselves. Ultimately, our true character and intentions will be revealed over time, so it's important not to rely too heavily on this law to maintain power. Law 7, get others to do the work for you, but always take the credit. This law is all about leveraging the efforts of others to make yourself look good. And when it comes to taking credit for the work of others, no one did it better than Thomas Edison. Edison was a master of publicity and self-promotion, and he famously claimed credit for inventing the light bulb, despite the fact that others had invented similar devices before him. In reality, Edison had a team of researchers working for him, including the brilliant Nikola Tesla, who actually developed many of the key innovations that made the light bulb practical. Another example of this comes from the world of business. In the early 20th century, industrialist Andrew Carnegie became one of the richest men in the world by building a vast steel empire. But he didn't do it alone. Carnegie was a master of delegation, and he surrounded himself with talented managers who helped him grow his business. And yet, when it came time to take credit for his success, Carnegie always made sure that he was the one in the spotlight. Now, you may be thinking, isn't taking credit for someone else's work dishonest and unethical? And you're right, it can be. But in certain situations, it can also be an effective way to build your reputation and enhance your influence. The key is to be subtle about it and avoid stepping on anyone's toes. If you can find ways to give others credit while still positioning yourself as the driving force behind a project or initiative, you'll be able to build a powerful personal brand without alienating your colleagues or coworkers. So the next time you find yourself working on a team project, remember the lesson of Law 7, get others to do the work for you, but always take the credit. Law 8, make other people come to you, use bait if necessary. This law is all about positioning yourself in a way that makes people come to you, rather than you chasing after them. One historical example of this is P.T. Barnum, who famously used bait to lure people into his circus. He would advertise the most bizarre and unique attractions, creating a sense of curiosity and excitement that drew people in. By using bait, he was able to make people come to him and turn his circus into a huge success. Another great example of this is Steve Jobs. He was a master at creating brand new products that people didn't even know they wanted, and then showing them how it would make their lives better. By being authentic and showing genuine passion for his products, he was able to create a loyal fan base that kept coming back for more. So, how can you apply this law to your own life? Whether you're building a business, trying to establish yourself as an expert, or simply looking to make new connections, it's essential to create a buzz around yourself. Consider what makes you unique and valuable, and use that to draw others in. Law 9, win through your actions, never through argument. One of the most accurate historical examples of this law in action comes from the life of Mahatma Gandhi. Gandhi's peaceful resistance and civil disobedience movements against British rule in India inspired millions of people and ultimately led to the country's independence. Gandhi was known for his ability to win people over through his actions, rather than through arguments. He led by example, using non-violent methods to effect change rather than engaging in heated debates. Gandhi knew that actions speak louder than words and that if he wanted to inspire change, he had to lead by example. Another example comes from the story of William Penn, the founder of the state of Pennsylvania. Penn was a Quaker who believed in nonviolence and tolerance, and he demonstrated this by treating Native Americans and other groups with respect and fairness. He won their trust and admiration through his actions and earned a reputation as a fair and just leader. So how can you apply this law to your personal life? Focus on your actions and let them speak for themselves. Instead of engaging in arguments or trying to convince others with words, show them through your actions what you are capable of. This could mean going the extra mile at work, treating others with kindness and respect, or simply being a good listener. Law 10. Avoid the unhappy and unlucky. Now, this law might seem a bit harsh, but it's crucial if you want to maintain power and success in your life. The unhappy and unlucky tend to bring negativity and drama into our lives, which can affect our own mental health and success. Historically, we can see this law in action with King Louis XIV of France. He was known for surrounding himself with people who were successful and happy, and he would often exile or remove people from his court who were constantly negative and unsuccessful. This law is not about being unkind or unsympathetic to others, but it's about being mindful of who we allow into our lives and how their energy can affect us. It's essential to surround ourselves with positive and successful people who can uplift and motivate us. In your personal life, it's essential to evaluate the people you spend your time with. Are they bringing positivity and growth into your life, or are they constantly negative and draining? It's okay to distance yourself from those who do not bring value to your life. Remember, you have the power to control who you surround yourself with, and it's essential to surround yourself with those who uplift and inspire you. By avoiding the unhappy and unlucky, you can focus on your own success and maintain a positive mindset. Law 11. Keep people dependent on you. This law is all about creating a sense of dependence in others, making them rely on you for guidance, advice, or resources. A great example of this is Steve Jobs. He not only created an innovative and successful product with the iPhone, but he also created an ecosystem that kept people coming back for more, making them dependent on Apple products. Another example is the music industry. Record labels have historically signed artists to long-term contracts, making them dependent on the label for distribution and marketing. This dependency often leads to the label having more control over the artist's career. So how can you apply this law to your personal life? It's important to find ways to provide value to others that make them rely on you. This could be in the form of knowledge, resources, or connections. By becoming indispensable to others, you can create a sense of dependency that keeps them coming back to you for help and guidance. However, it's also important to be mindful of not taking advantage of this power dynamic and to use it ethically and responsibly. Law 12. Use selective honesty and generosity to disarm your victim. This law is all about the art of deception and how to use honesty and generosity to disarm your enemies or victims. One historical example of this law in action is Julius Caesar. He knew that if he were to be successful in his conquests, he needed the loyalty of his soldiers. To ensure this, Caesar would often reward his troops with spoils of war and other incentives. This selective generosity helped him maintain their loyalty and eventually led to his rise to power. Another modern example is the marketing industry. Companies often use selective honesty to sell products. For example, a car company may advertise their vehicle as having the best gas mileage, but fail to mention its poor safety ratings. This selective honesty can often lead consumers to trust the company and ultimately purchase the product. So, how can you apply this law in your personal life? The key is to use honesty and generosity selectively, only when it benefits you in the long run. For example, you could use selective honesty in negotiations by admitting to a small flaw in your argument, but emphasizing the overall strength of your position. Similarly, selective generosity can be used to build relationships with important people in your life, such as colleagues or superiors. But remember, the key is to use these tactics selectively and not to overdo it. Using them too often can lead to distrust and ultimately backfire on you. So, use this law with caution and always keep your ultimate goals in mind. Law 13. When asking for help, appeal to people's self-interest, never to their mercy or gratitude. This law is all about understanding how to ask for help in a way that is more likely to be successful. People are often motivated by self-interest, and if you can appeal to that, you're more likely to get the help you need. One historical example of this is Julius Caesar, who was a master at appealing to people's self-interest. He promised his soldiers land and money in exchange for their loyalty, which motivated them to fight harder for him. So, how can you apply this law to your personal life? If you need help from someone, think about what they might gain from helping you. Can you offer them something in return? Perhaps there's a skill you have that they need, or you could introduce them to someone who could help them in the future. By appealing to their self-interest, you're more likely to get the help you need. Additionally, be sure to present your request in a way that shows how it benefits them, not just you. Remember, people are often more likely to help when they feel like it's a win-win situation. Law 14, pose as a friend, work as a spy. This law is all about the art of deception and using friendship as a cover to gain valuable information. Now, when it comes to posing as a friend, it is important to note that this is not genuine friendship. Rather, it is a strategic move to gain access to information that you may not otherwise have. You want to create a sense of trust and rapport with the person you are trying to extract information from, and the best way to do that is to pretend to be their friend. But don't be fooled, this law is not just about pretending to be someone's friend. You must also be a spy, gathering valuable information that you can use to your advantage. This could be anything from confidential business information to personal secrets. And once you have gathered this information, you can use it to gain power and control over the situation. One example of this law in action is when a company hires a new employee. The employee may initially feel grateful for the job opportunity and feel that their new colleagues are friendly and welcoming. However, in reality, the company is gathering information about the employee's strengths, weaknesses, and potential weaknesses, which they can then use to their advantage. Now, how can you apply this law to your personal life? It is important to note that while this law can be effective, it should be used with caution and only in situations where it is necessary. If you are trying to extract information from someone, do so ethically and with respect. Don't manipulate or deceive people for personal gain. Law 15, crush your enemy totally. This law is all about the importance of finishing what you started. When you find yourself in a position of power, it is crucial that you do not leave any loose ends with your enemies. You must completely crush them, leaving no room for retaliation or recovery. History is full of examples where this law has been used effectively. One such example is Julius Caesar's conquest of Gaul. Caesar did not simply defeat his enemies, he completely annihilated them. He burned their villages, killed their men, and enslaved their women and children. By doing so, he sent a clear message that any resistance against him would not be tolerated. On the other hand, there are also examples of leaders who failed to follow this law and paid the price for it. One such example is Napoleon Bonaparte. After his defeat in Russia, Napoleon had the opportunity to crush his enemies and secure his reign. However, he chose to retreat and allow his enemies to regroup and ultimately overthrow him. So, how can you apply this law to your personal life? It is important to note that this law should only be used in situations where your survival is at stake. In your personal and professional life, it is important to be strategic and not burn bridges unnecessarily. However, in situations where someone is threatening your existence, it is crucial that you crush them completely and leave no room for retaliation. Law 15, crush your enemy totally, is a powerful law that must be used with caution. It is crucial that you finish what you started and leave no room for retaliation. By doing so, you can secure your position of power and ensure your survival. Law 16, use absence to increase respect and honor. At its core, this law is about the power of scarcity. When something is rare or hard to come by, it becomes more valuable. Similarly, when someone is absent or inaccessible, they become more desirable and respected. This law can be seen in a variety of settings, from personal relationships to the business world. For example, imagine you have a friend who is always available to hang out or chat. While you may enjoy their company, you may also start to take them for granted. On the other hand, if that same friend is busy and only able to see you occasionally, you may value their time and attention more. The same principle applies in the workplace. A boss who is always available may be seen as weak or easily manipulated, while a boss who is more reserved may command more respect and authority. So how can you apply this law to your personal life? One way is to be more selective with your time and attention. Don't always be available to others, and instead focus on building up your own value by pursuing your passions and interests. Additionally, you can create a sense of mystery and allure by being more reserved and unpredictable in your behavior. This can make others more curious about you and increase their respect for you. In conclusion, Law 16 reminds us of the power of scarcity and how absence can increase respect and honor. By being more selective with your time and attention, and by creating a sense of mystery and allure, you can apply this law to your personal life and increase your own value in the eyes of others. Law 17, keep others in suspended terror, cultivate an air of unpredictability. This law is all about keeping people on edge and uncertain about your intentions. By being unpredictable, you can instill a sense of fear and awe in those around you, making them more likely to comply with your wishes. One of the most well-known examples of someone who has used this law effectively is former U.S. President Donald Trump. Throughout his presidency, Trump was known for his erratic behavior and tendency to make unexpected decisions. This kept his opponents guessing and gave him an edge in negotiations and political battles. So, how can you apply this law to your personal life? One way is to be less predictable in your day-to-day interactions. This could mean changing up your routine, trying new things, or even just being less transparent about your thoughts and feelings. By keeping people guessing, you can maintain an air of mystery and intrigue that can help you gain power and influence. However, it's important to note that there are risks associated with being too unpredictable. If you're not careful, you can come across as unreliable or unstable, which can harm your reputation and relationships. So, it's important to find a balance between being unpredictable and maintaining a sense of trust and consistency with those around you. Law 18, do not build fortresses to protect yourself, isolation is dangerous. This law is about the dangers of isolation and the importance of building strong social connections. While it may be tempting to retreat into our own personal fortresses, doing so can be dangerous and counterproductive. History is full of examples of leaders who isolated themselves from their advisors and subjects, only to become victims of their own ignorance and arrogance. For example, the infamous French Queen Marie Antoinette famously isolated herself from the people she ruled, leading to her eventual downfall. Similarly, businesses that isolate themselves from their customers or the wider community can quickly lose touch with reality and become irrelevant. So how can we apply this law to our personal lives? One way is to focus on building strong social connections with others. This can be done by participating in community groups, volunteering, or simply reaching out to friends and family members. By connecting with others, we can gain new perspectives, receive valuable feedback, and build a support network that can help us through difficult times. Law 19, know who you're dealing with, do not offend the wrong person. This law is about the importance of understanding the power dynamics at play in any given situation. It's easy to make enemies when we underestimate the power or influence of those we're dealing with. History is full of examples of powerful individuals who were brought down by underestimating the influence of others. For instance, the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria in 1914 led to the start of World War I. This was due to the assassin, Gavrilo Princip, being underestimated by the ruling elite. Similarly, companies that ignore the concerns or grievances of their customers or employees can suffer serious reputational damage or even legal consequences. So how can we apply this law to our personal lives? One way is to be aware of power dynamics and to tread carefully when dealing with individuals or groups that have more influence or power than us. It's important to show respect and consideration towards others, even if we disagree with them. Additionally, we can take the time to research and learn about the people we're dealing with, so that we can anticipate any potential conflicts or misunderstandings. Law 20, do not commit to anyone. This law is about the dangers of committing too fully to any one person or group. By keeping our options open and remaining flexible, we can avoid being tied down by obligations that limit our freedom and ability to act. History is full of examples of individuals who have succeeded by avoiding commitments that would have otherwise held them back. One example is the legendary explorer Christopher Columbus. Columbus received funding from various sponsors for his voyages, but he never committed exclusively to any one sponsor. This allowed him to navigate political and financial challenges with greater ease and ultimately led to his discovery of the New World. However, there are also countless examples of individuals who committed too deeply to a person or group and suffered the consequences. For example, politicians who are beholden to a particular interest group may find themselves unable to act in the best interest of the larger community they serve. So how can we apply this law to our personal lives? One way is to avoid becoming too dependent on any one person or group. This can be done by maintaining a broad network of relationships and by remaining open to new opportunities and possibilities. It's important to be able to say no and to set boundaries, so that we don't become tied down by obligations that limit our freedom or ability to act. Law 21, play a sucker to catch a sucker, seem dumber than your mark. This law states that if you want to deceive someone, make them believe they are smarter than you. By playing a sucker, you make them lower their guard, giving you the advantage to outsmart them. Let me give you an example. Imagine you're negotiating a deal with a potential client. You notice that they are overconfident and believe they have the upper hand. Instead of trying to prove them wrong, act like you don't understand the terms and conditions they're proposing. Ask questions that make you seem naive and uneducated, and let them explain everything in detail. This will make them feel important and knowledgeable, and they will be more likely to let their guard down. Once you have gathered enough information, use it to your advantage and negotiate the terms that work best for you. But this law doesn't just apply to business. You can also use it in your personal life. Have you ever been in a situation where someone was trying to manipulate you? Maybe a friend who wants to borrow money or a colleague who wants you to do their work for them. By playing a sucker, you can turn the tables and get what you want. Act like you don't know the true value of what they're asking for and let them feel like they're doing you a favor. This will give you the opportunity to negotiate on your terms and get what you want. Law 22, use the surrender tactic, transform weakness into power. The surrender tactic is a powerful tool in the art of power because it allows you to turn a potentially losing situation into a winning one. The basic idea behind this tactic is to show the appearance of surrender in order to lull your opponent into a false sense of security. By doing so, you can gain the upper hand and ultimately come out on top. One famous example of the surrender tactic comes from the ancient Chinese military strategist Sun Tzu. He once advised that if your enemy is superior in strength, evade them. If they are angry, irritate them. If they are well organized, disrupt them. And if they are strong, make them weak. This last point is where the surrender tactic comes into play. One way to use the surrender tactic is to give your opponent the impression that you're weak or that you're not a threat. For example, imagine you're negotiating a business deal with a rival company. If you appear too eager or aggressive, the other company may become defensive and refuse to make concessions. However, if you appear more humble and willing to compromise, they may let their guard down and be more willing to work with you. Another way to use the surrender tactic is to use your opponent's strength against them. For instance, if you're facing a more experienced opponent in a game of chess, you could deliberately make a weak move in order to lure them into a trap. This move may appear to be a mistake, but in reality, it's a calculated tactic that allows you to turn the tables and gain the advantage. So how can you apply this law to your personal life? The key is to be aware of your strengths and weaknesses and to use them to your advantage. If you're facing a difficult situation, don't be afraid to appear weaker than you actually are. By doing so, you can disarm your opponent and gain the upper hand. Remember, in the game of power, perception is everything. Law 23, concentrate your forces. The basic idea behind this law is that in order to be effective, you must focus your energy and resources on a single goal or objective. This means prioritizing and concentrating your efforts on what really matters, instead of spreading yourself too thin and being ineffective. One example of this law in action can be found in the military strategy of Napoleon Bonaparte. During his famous campaign in Russia, Napoleon chose to concentrate his forces on a single objective, capturing Moscow. By doing so, he was able to keep his army focused and avoid distractions, ultimately achieving his goal. The same principle can be applied in your personal life. If you have too many goals or objectives, you may find yourself overwhelmed and unable to make progress on any of them. Instead, choose the most important goal and concentrate your efforts on achieving it. This may mean saying no to other opportunities or delegating tasks to others so that you can focus on what truly matters. Another aspect of this law is the importance of unity. When you concentrate your forces, you create a sense of unity and purpose that can be very powerful. By rallying people around a common goal or objective, you can create a sense of momentum that can carry you forward to success. In summary, Law 23 is all about focusing your energy and resources on a single goal or objective. By doing so, you can avoid distractions, stay focused, and ultimately achieve your goals. So, take a moment to reflect on your priorities, and ask yourself, where should I be concentrating my forces? And remember, in the game of power, focus is key. Law 24, play the perfect courtier. The courtier is a figure from the medieval court, known for their charm, wit, and ability to navigate the complex social dynamics of the royal court. In the modern context, the courtier represents someone who is skilled in the art of social interaction, able to win friends and influence people with ease. One example of a modern-day courtier is the renowned television host, Oprah Winfrey. Oprah's success can be attributed in part to her exceptional social skills and ability to connect with people on a personal level. Her charm and charisma have won her many loyal fans and made her a powerful force in the entertainment industry. The key to playing the perfect courtier is to understand the social dynamics of the environment in which you operate. This means being able to read the room, understand people's motivations, and adapt your behavior accordingly. So how can you apply this law to your personal life? The answer lies in developing your social skills and learning how to connect with people. This may involve learning how to read body language, becoming more assertive in your interactions, or simply practicing active listening. It's important to note that playing the perfect courtier does not mean being fake or insincere. Rather, it means being authentic while also being strategic in your interactions. By learning how to navigate social situations with ease, you can build strong relationships, win allies, and ultimately achieve your goals. Law 25, recreate yourself. This law is all about the power of transformation and the ability to reinvent oneself to achieve greater success. Let's take a look at some examples of individuals who have successfully applied this law. First up is Shaquille O'Neal. He started his career as a basketball player but has since recreated himself as an entrepreneur, actor, and even a law enforcement officer. Shaq understood the importance of evolving and adapting to stay relevant and achieve success beyond basketball. Another example is Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. He started his career as a professional wrestler but has since transformed himself into one of the biggest movie stars in the world. By continually recreating himself and expanding his skill set, he has become a household name and a major force in the entertainment industry. Lastly, we have Arnold Schwarzenegger, who went from being a bodybuilder to a successful actor, businessman, and even the governor of California. By constantly recreating himself, Arnold has achieved great success and left a lasting impact on multiple industries. So, how can you apply this law to your own life? Start by identifying areas where you feel stuck or unfulfilled. Then, think about who you want to be and what skills and qualities you need to develop to achieve your goals. Finally, take action to make the necessary changes and don't be afraid to evolve and adapt along the way. Remember, the ability to recreate yourself is a powerful tool that can help you achieve success in all areas of your life. Law 26, keep your hands clean. This law is all about avoiding association with anything that may compromise your reputation or integrity. Let's take a look at some examples of individuals who have violated this law and paid the price for it. One example is former United States President Richard Nixon, who was forced to resign due to his involvement in the Watergate scandal. Another example is the Enron scandal, where the company's executives engaged in fraudulent activities that ultimately led to its downfall. So, how can you apply this law to your own life? It's simple: avoid any actions or associations that may compromise your reputation or integrity. Always strive to maintain a high level of ethics and professionalism in everything you do. Avoid engaging in any illegal or unethical activities, and always think about the long-term consequences of your actions. Another important aspect of keeping your hands clean is choosing the right people to associate with. Surround yourself with individuals who share your values and are committed to maintaining high ethical standards. This will help you avoid any negative associations that may damage your reputation or compromise your integrity. Law 27. Play on people's need to believe to create a cult-like following. This law is all about tapping into people's desires to believe in something greater than themselves and using that to create a devoted following. Let's take a look at some examples of individuals who have successfully applied this law. One example is the late Steve Jobs, who was able to create a cult-like following around Apple products. By tapping into people's desire for innovative and sleek technology, Jobs was able to create a devoted following of Apple fans who were willing to wait in line for hours to get their hands on the latest product. So, how can you apply this law to your own life? Start by identifying the desires and needs of your audience or target market. What do they want to believe in? What do they need to feel fulfilled or satisfied? Once you have identified these desires, use them to create a message or product that speaks directly to those needs. It's important to note, however, that this law can be dangerous if taken too far. Creating a cult-like following can lead to blind loyalty and a disregard for ethics and reason. Always be sure to maintain a level of transparency and honesty with your followers, and avoid manipulating or exploiting them for personal gain. Law 28. Interaction with boldness. This law is all about taking decisive action and moving forward with confidence and conviction. One example of someone who embodied this law is Elon Musk. Musk is known for his bold and audacious goals, such as creating a colony on Mars and revolutionizing the automotive industry with Tesla. He enters into action with boldness and a willingness to take risks, which has led to his success in multiple industries. Another example is Martin Luther King Jr. King was a civil rights leader who boldly stood up against racial inequality and fought for justice and equality for all. He entered into action with boldness and a strong conviction that change was necessary, which ultimately led to the passing of landmark civil rights legislation. So, how can you apply this law to your own life? Start by identifying areas where you may be holding back or hesitating due to fear or uncertainty. Ask yourself what the worst-case scenario would be, and whether it is something you can realistically handle. Once you have assessed the risks, take action with boldness and confidence. It's important to note that entering into action with boldness does not mean acting recklessly or without consideration for others. Always be sure to consider the potential consequences of your actions and how they may affect others. Law 29. Plan all the way to the end. This law emphasizes the importance of thinking ahead and having a clear plan in place for achieving your goals. One example is the famous military strategist, Sun Tzu. Sun Tzu stressed the importance of planning for every possible scenario in battle, and preparing for victory before even engaging in combat. This strategy has been used by military leaders throughout history and is still relevant today. So, how can you apply this law to your personal life? Start by setting clear and specific goals for yourself. Then, create a plan of action that breaks down the steps you need to take to achieve those goals. Be sure to anticipate any obstacles or challenges that may arise along the way and plan accordingly. It's important to note that while planning is crucial, it's also important to remain flexible and adaptable. Sometimes unexpected circumstances can arise, and you may need to adjust your plan accordingly. Don't be afraid to pivot or make changes as needed, but always have a clear end goal in mind. Law 30. Make your accomplishments seem effortless. This law emphasizes the importance of appearing confident and capable, even if you've worked hard to achieve your goals. One example of someone who embodies this law is tennis player Roger Federer. Federer is known for his effortless-looking playing style, even though he puts in countless hours of practice and training. He appears calm and composed on the court, even when faced with challenging opponents or situations. This image of ease and confidence intimidates his opponents and has helped him to build a strong reputation and following among tennis fans. Another example is Steve Jobs. Jobs was a master of making complex technology seem simple and intuitive. He designed products that were easy to use and understand, which helped to build a loyal following of Apple customers. So, how can you apply this law to your personal life? Start by developing a strong sense of self-confidence and poise. Even if you're struggling or feeling overwhelmed, try to project an image of calm and control. This can help to build a positive reputation and make others more likely to trust and respect you. Another way to apply this law is by mastering your craft. When you're truly skilled at something, it can appear effortless to others. By putting in the time and effort to hone your skills, you can make your accomplishments seem effortless and build a strong reputation for yourself. Law 31, control the options, get others to play with the cards you deal. This law is all about taking control of a situation by limiting the choices available to others and getting them to play by your rules. One example of this law in action is the way that McDonald's controls their menu options. By offering a limited range of items, they're able to maintain consistency and efficiency in their operations, while also creating a sense of familiarity and comfort for customers. By controlling the options available, they're able to ensure that customers play by their rules and adhere to their standard procedures. Another example is the way that Apple controls the ecosystem of their products. By limiting the options for customization and creating a closed system that only works with their devices and software, they're able to maintain control over the user experience and ensure that customers stay within their ecosystem. So, how can you apply this law to your personal life? One way is to focus on setting clear boundaries and expectations in your relationships and interactions with others. By limiting the options available and creating a structure for how you'll interact, you can maintain control over the situation and ensure that others play by your rules. Another way to apply this law is by being strategic in the options you present to others. By limiting their choices and presenting options that are favorable to you, you can influence their decisions and maintain control over the situation. Law 32, play to people's fantasies. This law is all about understanding the desires and dreams of the people around you and using them to your advantage. The first step in playing to people's fantasies is to understand what those fantasies are. This requires a deep understanding of human nature and the ability to read people and understand what motivates them. Once you've identified what people's fantasies are, you can begin to use them to your advantage. One famous example of this is the famous magician, Harry Houdini. Houdini was known for his ability to escape from seemingly impossible situations, such as being chained up in a water-filled tank. People were fascinated by Houdini's ability to cheat death, and he used this fascination to his advantage by creating an entire persona around his escapology. He played up the danger and excitement of his acts, feeding people's fantasies and making himself a household name. Another example of playing to people's fantasies is in advertising. Advertisers are experts at understanding what people want and need, and using that to sell products. For example, car companies often use imagery of freedom and adventure in their advertisements, tapping into people's fantasies of escaping their everyday lives and hitting the open road. So, how can you apply this law to your personal life? First, take the time to understand what motivates the people around you. What are their hopes, dreams, and desires? Once you understand this, you can begin to tailor your interactions with them to appeal to those fantasies. This doesn't mean manipulating or deceiving people, but rather understanding what makes them tick and using that to build strong relationships. Law 33, discover each man's thumbscrew. The idea behind this law is to find out what motivates or scares an individual and to use it to your advantage. Essentially, everyone has a thumbscrew, or a point of vulnerability, that can be exploited to get what you want. The key is to identify this weakness and use it as leverage to gain power and influence over them. To illustrate this point, let's take the example of a CEO who is struggling to motivate a key employee to meet a deadline. By discovering the employee's thumbscrew, which in this case may be fear of failure or a desire for recognition, the CEO can offer incentives or use the threat of negative consequences to motivate the employee and ensure the deadline is met. So, how can you apply this law to your personal life? Firstly, it's important to be observant and pay attention to the behavior and motivations of those around you. Once you have identified an individual's thumbscrew, you can use it to influence them in a way that benefits you. However, it's important to use this power responsibly and ethically. It's never appropriate to exploit someone's weakness for personal gain or to manipulate them in a way that is harmful or dishonest. Law 34, be royal in your own fashion, act like a king to be treated like one. The basic idea behind this law is that if you want to be treated like a king, you must first act like one. You have to exude confidence, poise, and a sense of authority in everything you do. This is because people tend to respond to those who appear to be in control and confident, and they often accord them the respect and deference they believe they deserve. For example, consider a job interview. If you go in with a lack of confidence and appear nervous, it's unlikely that the interviewer will view you as a strong candidate. But if you walk in with a confident demeanor, speak clearly, and demonstrate your abilities, you're more likely to impress and be viewed as a potential leader. So, how can you apply this law in your personal life? Firstly, it's important to understand that confidence comes from within. You have to believe in yourself and your abilities in order to project an air of confidence to others. This means working on your self-esteem and ensuring that you're comfortable with who you are as a person. Next, it's important to pay attention to your body language and the way you present yourself. Stand tall, make eye contact, and speak clearly and confidently. This will help you to appear more authoritative and in control, which will in turn help you to be treated with greater respect. Law 35, master the art of timing. The idea behind this law is that timing is crucial when it comes to achieving success and exerting influence over others. You have to know when to act and when to wait, when to speak up and when to remain silent. In other words, timing is everything. For example, consider a politician who is looking to introduce a controversial piece of legislation. If they introduce it at the wrong time, it could fail and damage their reputation. But if they introduce it at the right time, when the public is more receptive to the idea, they can gain support and advance their agenda. So, how can you apply this law in your personal life? Firstly, it's important to pay attention to the context of the situation. Look for cues in the environment, the people around you, and the current state of affairs. This will help you to identify the best time to act or make a move. Secondly, it's important to be patient and not rush into action. Sometimes waiting for the right moment can be more powerful than acting impulsively. This means understanding when it's appropriate to be proactive and when it's better to wait and observe. Law 36, disdain things you cannot have, ignoring them is the best revenge. The idea behind this law is that if there is something you desire but cannot have, it's best to move on and ignore it, rather than dwelling on it and allowing it to consume you. By showing disdain towards the unattainable, you can demonstrate your power and control over your own emotions. For example, let's say you were up for a promotion at work but didn't get it, and you see the person who did get the job flaunting their new status. Instead of obsessing over the promotion and feeling bitter, you can choose to show disdain and move on. This can show your colleagues that you're not fazed by the outcome and that you have other priorities. So, how can you apply this law in your personal life? Firstly, it's important to recognize when you're fixating on something that's unattainable. This could be a relationship, a job, or a possession. Once you've identified what it is, it's important to focus on what you do have rather than what you don't have. Secondly, it's important to understand that by showing disdain towards what you cannot have, you're taking back your power. You're not allowing external factors to control your emotions or decisions. This can help you to maintain your confidence and sense of self-worth. Law 37, create compelling spectacles. The idea behind this law is that by creating a compelling spectacle, you can capture people's attention and gain their admiration and respect. A spectacle can be anything from a grand event to a small gesture that is visually impressive and memorable. For example, consider the launch of a new product. If the launch is done in a lackluster way, it may not capture people's attention or generate much buzz. However, if the launch is done with a grand spectacle, such as an elaborate event or a high-profile celebrity endorsement, it can capture people's attention and generate a lot of excitement and interest. So, how can you apply this law in your personal life? Firstly, it's important to identify opportunities to create a compelling spectacle. This could be a special occasion, a personal achievement, or an event you're hosting. Once you've identified the opportunity, think about ways to make it visually impressive and memorable. Secondly, it's important to understand that creating a compelling spectacle is not just about being flashy or showy. It's about capturing people's attention and generating interest in what you're doing. This can be done through thoughtful planning and attention to detail. Law 38. Think as you like, but behave like others. This law emphasizes the importance of balancing individuality and conformity in social situations. While it's important to have your own thoughts and opinions, it's equally important to behave in a way that is socially acceptable and doesn't offend or upset others. Historically, one example of this law in action is Queen Elizabeth I of England. She was known for her strong personality and independent thinking, but also understood the importance of presenting a public image that was acceptable to her subjects. She dressed in the fashion of the time and participated in activities that were popular with her court, even if they weren't her personal preferences. This helped her gain the support and respect of her people. In more modern times, we can see this law in action in the workplace. In a professional setting, it's important to express your opinions and ideas, but it's also important to do so in a way that is respectful and professional. By understanding the expectations of your workplace culture, you can navigate the social environment more effectively and build positive relationships with colleagues. Law 39. Stir up waters to catch fish. This law is all about creating a sense of chaos or upheaval in order to draw people out of their comfort zones and into your sphere of influence. It's a powerful tool for those who know how to use it effectively. One historical example of this law in action is Julius Caesar. Before his rise to power, he intentionally stirred up conflicts and created chaos within the Roman Republic, which allowed him to present himself as a strong leader who could bring stability to the region. In more modern times, we can see this law being used in advertising and marketing. Advertisers often use provocative or controversial messaging to grab people's attention and draw them in, even if they don't necessarily agree with the message being presented. So, how can you apply this law to your personal life? One way is to use it in a negotiation or a job interview. By introducing a sense of uncertainty or tension, you can create an opportunity to present yourself as a strong and confident individual who can bring order to the situation. However, it's important to use this law with caution and to be mindful of the potential consequences. Stirring up too much chaos can lead to negative outcomes and damage relationships. Law 40. Despise the free lunch. This law is all about rejecting the idea of something for nothing, and being wary of those who offer it. According to this law, nothing in life comes for free, and those who offer something for nothing often have ulterior motives. One real-life example of this law in action is with Ponzi schemes. These schemes promise high returns with little to no risk, but in reality, they are fraudulent and ultimately collapse, leaving the investors with nothing. In a personal context, this law can be applied in our daily lives by being cautious of offers that seem too good to be true. This can be anything from a friend offering to pay for dinner, to a business partner offering a lucrative deal without any upfront investment. By despising the free lunch, we can protect ourselves from potential scams and manipulations, and we can also build our self-reliance and sense of independence. However, it's important to note that this law does not mean that we should reject help or support from others. It simply means that we should be aware of the potential motives behind offers that seem too good to be true. Law 41. Avoid stepping into a great man's shoes. This law advises us against trying to fill the shoes of a great person who has come before us. Instead, we should strive to create our own path and legacy. One example from history is the case of Emperor Nero of Rome. He was an ambitious man who tried to live up to the legacy of his predecessor, Emperor Augustus, by expanding the Roman Empire and building grand public works. However, his efforts fell short, and his rule ended in disaster as he was overthrown and forced to commit suicide. In more recent history, we can look at the case of Steve Jobs, the co-founder of Apple. After his death, many people wondered who would step in to fill his shoes and lead the company forward. However, Apple's new CEO, Tim Cook, did not try to be the next Steve Jobs. Instead, he brought his own leadership style and ideas to the company, leading it to continued success and innovation. We can apply this law by recognizing that we don't have to live up to someone else's legacy or try to be someone we're not. We should focus on developing our own strengths and unique qualities, and strive to make our own mark on the world. By doing so, we can avoid the pitfalls of trying to live up to someone else's greatness and instead create our own success. Law 42, strike the shepherd and the sheep will scatter. This law is all about the power of leadership and how to dismantle it. The idea is simple: by targeting the leader, you can weaken the entire group or organization they lead. This law has been used throughout history, from the assassination of Julius Caesar to the downfall of Saddam Hussein. One historical example of this law being used was during World War II. The British carried out a covert operation to assassinate Reinhard Heydrich, a high-ranking Nazi official and one of the architects of the Holocaust. Heydrich was seen as the key figure in the Nazis' control of Czechoslovakia, and his assassination greatly weakened their grip on the region. A more recent example of this law being used is during the Arab Spring uprisings. When protesters in Egypt demanded the resignation of their president, Hosni Mubarak, he refused to step down. However, after targeting Mubarak and his inner circle, the protesters were successful in their demands, and Mubarak was eventually forced to resign. So, how can you apply this law to your personal life? It's important to recognize the power dynamics in any group or organization you're a part of. By identifying who the leaders are, you can understand the potential impact of targeting them. Law 43, work on the hearts and minds of others. This law is all about the art of persuasion, and it states that in order to get people to do what you want, you need to appeal to both their emotions and their intellect. To do this, you must understand their needs, desires, and fears, and craft your message in a way that speaks directly to them. A great example of this is Apple's marketing strategy for the iPod. Rather than focusing on the technical specifications of the device, they created an emotional connection by emphasizing the freedom and joy of having all your favorite music in your pocket. By tapping into people's desire for convenience and self-expression, they were able to create a wildly successful product. Another example of working on the hearts and minds of others is the use of storytelling in politics. A politician who can tell a compelling story that resonates with their constituents is more likely to win their support than one who simply presents a laundry list of policy proposals. So how can you apply this law to your personal life? First, take the time to understand the people you want to persuade. What are their needs, desires, and fears? Once you have a clear understanding of this, craft your message in a way that speaks directly to them. Use emotional appeals and stories to make your case, and don't forget to appeal to their intellect as well. By working on the hearts and minds of others, you can become a more effective communicator and a more powerful persuader. Law 44, disarm and infuriate with the mirror effect. The law suggests that one should mirror their opponent's behavior, attitudes, and emotions to make them feel heard and understood, but also to disarm them and create frustration. By reflecting the same behavior back at them, you can also gain control of the situation. One example of this is in negotiation. If you want to persuade someone to come to an agreement, you can start by mirroring their stance and point of view. By showing empathy and understanding, you can make them feel more comfortable and open to your suggestions. However, this law can also be used in more malicious ways. For example, if someone is being aggressive or hostile towards you, you can mirror their behavior back at them, making them feel uncomfortable and agitated. This can be an effective way to disarm their hostility and gain control of the situation. In personal life, one can apply this law by understanding that people tend to like others who are similar to themselves. Therefore, by mirroring someone's behavior, you can make them feel more comfortable and increase your likability. However, it is important to be cautious and use this law ethically, as it can also be used to manipulate and harm others. In conclusion, the mirror effect can be a powerful tool for disarming and infuriating opponents, as well as for building rapport with others. Law 45, preach the need for change, but never reform too much at once. This law is all about the delicate balance of change and continuity. It advises that while change is necessary, too much change at once can be dangerous and destabilizing. It's important to maintain a sense of stability and continuity, while also recognizing the need for progress. One historical example of this law in action is the French Revolution. The revolutionaries aimed to create a new society, free from the corruption and oppression of the old regime. However, they implemented their reforms too quickly and too radically, resulting in chaos and violence. Another example is the fall of the Soviet Union. Gorbachev's policy of perestroika, or restructuring, aimed to reform the Soviet economy and political system. However, the reforms were too much, too soon, and ultimately led to the collapse of the Soviet Union. So, how can you apply this law to your personal life? It's important to recognize the need for change, but to implement it gradually and thoughtfully. Don't rush into drastic changes without considering the potential consequences. Instead, take small steps towards your goals, while also maintaining a sense of stability and continuity. By doing so, you'll be more likely to achieve lasting, positive change. Law 46: Never appear too perfect. This law emphasizes the importance of avoiding the appearance of perfection. People are naturally drawn to those who are relatable and seem human, so if you appear too perfect, you may create envy and resentment in others. Instead, it is better to show some flaws and vulnerabilities. One famous example of this principle in action is Abraham Lincoln. While he is widely regarded as one of the greatest presidents in U.S. history, he was also known for his humble origins and personal struggles, such as his battle with depression. By acknowledging his imperfections, he was able to connect with the American people and become one of the most beloved presidents in history. In our personal lives, it's important to remember that we don't need to be perfect to be successful or well-liked. By being honest about our flaws and vulnerabilities, we can build more genuine connections with others and avoid creating envy or resentment. So, be authentic and don't be afraid to show your human side. That's the key to building lasting relationships and gaining power through them. Law 47: Do not go past the mark you aimed for. In victory, know when to stop. This law emphasizes the importance of knowing when to stop and not overreaching, even when in a position of power or success. One example of this law in action is in the world of sports. In a game, a team may be leading with a comfortable score, but if they become too overconfident and start playing recklessly, they risk losing the lead and the game. It is important to know when to slow down and play conservatively to maintain the lead and secure the victory. In business, this law can be applied to not pushing too hard for a sale or negotiation. If you push too hard, you risk losing the deal altogether. It is important to strike a balance and know when to stop negotiating to avoid coming off as aggressive or desperate. In personal life, this law can be applied to achieving personal goals. It is important to have a clear idea of what you want to achieve, but also to know when to stop and enjoy the journey. Don't overwork yourself or sacrifice your well-being in the pursuit of a goal. It's important to find a balance between striving for success and taking care of yourself. In summary, knowing when to stop and not overreaching is an important skill to have in all aspects of life. It can help you avoid unnecessary risks and maintain your success. So, remember to always aim for the mark, but know when to stop and enjoy the fruits of your labor. Law 48: Assume formlessness. This law suggests that one should adopt a flexible and adaptable approach to their strategies and actions. To put it simply, do not become too attached to any particular form or identity, but instead be willing to constantly adapt and change based on the circumstances. One real-life example of this law in action is the business world, where successful companies continuously evolve and adapt to changing markets and customer needs. As Bruce Lee once said, "Be formless, shapeless, like water." Now you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. You put water into a bottle, it becomes the bottle. You put it in a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Now, water can flow or it can crash. Be water, my friend. This quote emphasizes the importance of being able to adapt to any situation and adopt different forms as needed. In our personal lives, we can apply this law by being open-minded, flexible, and willing to adapt to changing circumstances. Remember, rigidity and attachment to any particular identity or form can hold us back from reaching our full potential. So, be like water and assume formlessness to gain power in all aspects of your life. Thank you for watching this video on the 48 Laws of Power. We hope you have gained valuable insights on the principles of power and how to apply them in your personal and professional life. By understanding these laws, you can become more effective in your interactions with others and achieve your goals with greater success. Remember, power is not about dominating others, but about mastering yourself and your environment. Use these laws wisely, and always keep in mind that with great power comes great responsibility. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel for more content on business and leadership. Thank you for watching.